So, welcome. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you what we refer to as your emotional center of gravity, what it is, how to shift it, basically, why it is that if you feel that anxiety is fairly inescapable, like if it feels like you keep returning to an anxious mode, could be something different than anxiety too. It works with depression, works with stress, okay, whatever it is. But basically, it's a way to identify and pinpoint what your set point is, where your nervous system is currently set and conditioned to operate, and then how to shift that set point so that you can automatically feel a different emotional state by default. So if you guys can hear me, if you can see me, let me know, put it in the comments. And then also, I'm going to be answering any questions that you guys put into the comments. So just go ahead and let me know what that is. And what I'd really love to see is what would you say is the dominant emotional state that you experience on a regular basis? Hey, what's up, Mitchell? I see you in the comments there. Good to have you here. Let me know, is it anxiety? Is it something different? Because the more I can get the specific insight of the people joining us, the better I can coach you guys up. So, why does this matter and why is this important? I'll get into that in 2 seconds. Real quick, for those of you who are brand new to our community, welcome. My name is Ty Hicks, founder of mentalhealthcoaching.com and our proprietary brain retraining method. Put this content out there for you guys because I used to have crazy anxiety and it turned into suicidal depression, and I was hospitalized. I was put into therapy. I was put on medication. I tried all the coping mechanisms. None of that worked for me, and I had to find my own unique way to live without anxiety, and that became our proprietary brain retraining method, and that's what it's evolved into over the years. And now, been blessed to have helped over 600 clients as of the time of recording this. Dramatically reduce, or in many hundred cases, at least 200 cases, help them fully overcome their anxiety. So we put this content out there because we want you guys to be all set. Hey, Robin. Hey, Yolis. Thank you for joining. Really appreciate it. So, what is your emotional center of gravity? Why does it matter? How do you identify it? How do you shift it? So, a couple key things. There is medical research. I was looking up to find the exact citation, and I found it and then I lost it. I had looked it up, but it's up there. You guys can Google it if you want to. But there are multiple medical studies that have determined that the average amount of thoughts that the human brain typically has on a regular basis is usually between 60,000 and 90,000. Okay, so the average typical thought that the amount of thoughts the human mind will have is between 60 and 90,000. And research also suggests that the large majority of those thoughts tend to be very habitual. The other thing to understand is that most of those thoughts are subconscious. So I'm going to be walking you through basically the four-step process that is happening in the background of your head all day long, every single day, that you're not really aware of, that's really determining how you feel moment by moment by moment. Okay, and that's really what causes your emotional center of gravity to exist. But because our mind is highly habituated, because most of the thoughts that we have on a daily basis are mostly the exact same thoughts that we had yesterday and the day before, that means that we tend to feel very, very similar things. Have you guys ever noticed, like, think about what your default emotional center of gravity is, first of all? So let me know in the comments what that would be. Is it anxiety? Is it depression? Is it nervous? Is it angry? Is it sad? Is it joyful? Is it neutral? Is it whatever? Like, what is that number one emotion that you tend to feel most often? Okay, let me know. For most of you guys, you can probably identify with anxiety, and we'll stick with that. Let's say it is anxiety. If you are feeling some level of anxious almost all of the time, what you've probably noticed is that even when really good things happen, you only feel happy or joyful for a tiny little blip of time. Have you ever noticed that? It's almost like your mind is not really able to focus on the good things, and it seems like it automatically, intrusively, and involuntarily like diverts itself back to the things to worry about, even though, people all around you are like, oh my gosh, just focus on the present. There's all these good things. You have so much to be grateful for, da 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 da. It seems like your mind can't stay fixated and focused on those good things. And so it's like, even if you have a really good day or you have some really good news for a short period of time, you'll feel good for a second. It'll be like a blip on the radar. And then all of a sudden, within an hour or less, it's like your mind just goes whoop right back to that center of gravity. Okay. The other thing that you may have experienced is there are some people in your life that you may have noticed have a positive emotional center of gravity. They are just inherently joyful almost all of the time. And even when they run into a tough moment or a tough day or a loss or a sadness or whatever it is, it really doesn't keep them down for very long. Have you ever noticed that? So some people stay up almost all the time. And even when they have a bad day or a bad moment, it's just a very temporary thing. And like a rubber band, they snap themselves back automatically to that positive emotional center of gravity. By contrast, if we're not careful and if we don't use the right conditioning tools, then our mind can work against us in the opposite way, where we have a default emotional center of gravity that's negative, and even when things around us are going really well, it'll only be a blip on the radar. And so, this is another big reason, by the way. Sorry, my neighbor dogs are barking, very annoying. This is another big reason why people need to understand that anxiety is not determined by your circumstances. People love to say, well, I'm anxious because of my job. I'm anxious because of where my marriage is at right now. I'm anxious because of my finances. I'm anxious because I just got this promotion and it's a lot of responsibility. And the thing is, I have to tell you that that's not necessarily true. That's not the case. Because there are plenty of people who respond to a death in the family or a promotion or a little financial hardship or a sickness. And believe it or not, it might be tough for you to see and witness, but it's true. They respond resourcefully. They have an emotionally resourceful response. Why? Because their mind has a different set of automatic thoughts. Some people have automatic negative thoughts, other people have automatic positive thoughts. And it is a fiction to believe that that's just the way it is, that some people are just like that and that you cannot be like that. You can train yourself to be that way. I used to be horrifically, debilitatingly suicidal, anxious, and depressed every single day of my life for the better part of 3 years. Right? It was completely consuming. There was no gratitude, there was no joy, there was no peace of mind, there was no rest really. Now I've been anxiety free for over 15 years, right? It's not been something that I've had bad days. Many of you guys know my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. That was like a 2 year debacle. I've had stressful moments, but it never gets to that level of anxiety. It certainly never gets to that level of depression because of the training process, because my emotional center of gravity has shifted. And that's what the superpower is that you are missing. If you shift your emotional center of gravity, like the way you want to think about this is a spectrum. So let's say on one side we've got like totally suicidal, totally depressed, in lots and lots and lots of pain, overwhelmed. Okay, that's on one side. We'll call that 0, and we'll call the other side 10. And a 10 would be tons of joy, gratitude, peace of mind, all that good stuff. Where you hang out, let's say you hang out at like a 3, for example. If you hang out at a 3 and then all of a sudden a really, really good thing happens in your life, you might temporarily blip up to a 5 or a 6, but then you're going to pull right back down to a 3. And if you have a really bad thing happen, well, you might go from 3 to 0 really quickly. Okay. Now, by contrast, I would say that my emotional center of gravity tends to stay more like around like an 8, 7.5, 8 these days. And so what that means is even when really difficult shit happens, right? Even when life does not go my way, I'll only really temporarily blip down to like a 5. You know what I mean? And then I very quickly like get rebounded back. It's almost like I don't even have to use a lot of willpower because my mind just naturally wants to move me in that direction. That's the power that you can tap into, and that's what I want you guys to get associated to. And what I want you to see is that unless you do that, there's going to continuously be this sense of stuckness, because that dominant emotion that you feel in your body is literally it's like an addiction. It's like your nervous system is addicted to it, and you have to break that cycle and change it and replace it with something else. Okay, and that's what we're going to start talking about today. So anyway, here's the first thing that you want to do. Step 1, identify your current emotional center of gravity. If you're having a tough time with it, ask yourself this: what are the 2 or 3 feelings that you tend to feel most of the time on a weekly basis? Just think of the last week and answer for yourself, what were the 2 or 3 emotions that you experienced the most? And then ask yourself, okay, Have I been feeling those two or three emotions predominantly for the past 6 months? Okay, and the answer is probably yes, unless you just had some major life interruption occur that has totally turned your life around. It's usually the case that it's going to be the same. Okay, and then the second step that you want to do, and put these answers in the comments if you guys don't mind. I see Robin's answer, I see Brenda's answer, I see Mitchell, I see Robin. So let me know what those answers are. So what would be your target state? You gotta have your target state. This, by the way, is a shortcut to getting rid of anxiety in your life. I'll tell you why. Most times, people have a difficult time getting rid of anxiety in their life because all they do is they focus on anxiety. They go, oh my gosh, my anxiety is kind of high. How do I manage my anxiety? How do I cope with my anxiety? What should I do for my anxiety? I'll give you a better question to ask yourself. What could I do to feel more joy? What could I do to feel more content? What could I do to feel more confident? What do I need to do to bring more of those into my life? Rather than focusing on what you don't want, you want to start to shift yourself into focusing on what you do want. Because remember this, what you focus on, you tend to get. So if you keep focusing on anxiety, 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 you're going to feel more anxiety. Instead, you want to focus on just the outcome you want. And so one of the key things we always do on the very first session with every one of my clients is we go, what is your target state? What do you want to replace anxiety with? Because here's another pro tip, by the way. You can't effectively get rid of one thing in the human nervous system without replacing it with something else. And so this is very often why people's anxiety morphs and changes and shifts over the years. Like they'll be really anxious at work, so then they'll quit their job and they think, oh, I'll feel better when I go home. And then they get anxious at home about all different things. And they're like, what the hell? I thought my anxiety was going to go away. No, because you got rid of the trigger, but you didn't get rid of the automatic thoughts. And so your automatic thoughts have now changed and shifted, and now they've become just another iteration of the same crappy thing. So unless you rewire the automatic thoughts, you're screwed. You know, you can change your triggers, you can insulate yourself, you can wrap yourself in bubble wrap, but it's never going to help you. The way that you become emotionally resourceful is training the brain to have the automatic thoughts that you want. So define your target state. Define your target state and focus on how to magnify that. For most of you, it's probably going to be something like content or confident. Okay, so I'm just going to use content for this example. Now, just imagine, like, what would life be like if all of a sudden you could feel content or confident 70, 80% of the time? I'm not talking about perfection, but having it be your new standard, having it be your new emotional center of gravity, and also having it be something that you don't have to like constantly push yourself to do, but it's literally just how you feel when you wake up because your brain is automatically thinking that way. That's what's possible for you. That is what you can do within about 90 days. That's about how long it took. Well, no, that's not totally true. Let me back up. It took me longer because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. It took me about 9 months, probably. I didn't really know what I was doing. I had to figure it all out and piece it together on my own. But now, thankfully, with the method being refined, it usually only takes about 10 to 12 weeks. You can do it. It's totally doable. Once you do that, imagine now how you'd be able to process and handle the stuff that currently feels totally overwhelming. If you were able to feel content and confident by default, how much easier would it be to handle what's going on with your kids, with your career, with your spouse, with your health? It's like putting different fuel in the car. Now all of a sudden the car operates at a totally different level. That's what's really powerful and really cool about that. So let's break this down into kind of the nitty gritty and let's show you how to actually start doing this. And I'm going to try something I haven't done in a while, which is I am going to, I think I can do this. I'm going to try a little screen share. Can I do a screen share? Facebook was letting me do an option for a screen share, and now it is not, and that is really annoying because I was just about to show you guys this cool little helpful graphic and it was going to make life easier for you, and it looks like I'm having a difficult time with that, so that sucks. Okay, that's annoying. Let me try one quick thing that might work. Nope, that did not work. Okay. All right, that's fine. Here's what we're going to do. So I'm going to have you go ahead and jot something down in your notes, if you don't mind. It'll be super, super simple. And honestly, you don't even have to take notes if you're listening to this in your car or whatever. That's all right. But if you can take notes, it'll help you. Okay. So if you can't take notes, just visualize this. what you want to do is think of a square. Okay, think of a square and think of in that square, divide that square into four squares. Okay, so you've got a total of four squares. You've got a top left, you've got a top right, you've got a bottom right, and then you've got a bottom left if we're going clockwise. Okay, and so here's what happens. This is what we call the thought cycle. And I just walked somebody through this a second ago. I just did a free coaching session with them and helped them to identify theirs. So I'll walk you through how this works generally. The very first thing, the top left box, okay, the very first thing that happens is we have a thought or a belief. Thought or belief. That would be the number one thing. Okay, and if someone can put that in the comments, I'd greatly appreciate it. Number one, we have a thought or a belief. So at any given moment of the day, your mind is having a thought or a resident belief. Okay, sometimes you're not, like I hear sometimes people say, gosh, I just wake up in the morning and I'm not even thinking about anything and I feel anxious. You might not be consciously thinking about something, but I guarantee you your mind in the recesses and the subconscious is thinking about something. You might be thinking, like it's going to be an overwhelming day, it's going to be a bad day, something like that. So the first thing that we do is we have a thought. So the second thing that occurs, so the second box, top right box, is we have a feeling. So first there's a thought, second there's a feeling. And most people are so fixated on their feelings that they don't realize that your feelings are just a byproduct of your thoughts. Okay, well, I'll have more to say about this in a second. The third thing that happens, bottom right box, is that we take an action. Action is the key word in that bottom right box. So a lot of times people will say things like, gosh, I want to lose weight. I want to start working out. I want to, make more calls at work. I want to do this. I want to do that. And the thing that they don't realize is that the reason they're engaging in those actions is because they're experiencing certain feelings. And they're experiencing certain feelings on a regular basis because they're having certain habitual thoughts. So there's a thought, there's a feeling, there's an action, and then fourth, there's a result. So the woman I was just working with, I'll use as an example. So her whole thing was, I'm not getting out of bed in the morning on the days I don't have work. And so I said, okay, gotcha. How do you usually feel when you wake up and you need to get out of bed? And she said, unmotivated, anxious, and fearful. I said, okay, gotcha. So we put that in box number 2. I had her write those boxes out, and this is what you can do for yourself too, right? Think about how you're feeling on a regular basis. You just answered that question a few seconds ago. Like, what is your emotional center of gravity? And then you would put that in the second box, okay? So that feeling, let's just say it's anxious. So then I said to her this, and then I'm saying it to you indirectly. I said, what are you usually telling yourself when you're waking up in the morning and you're feeling anxious? And we identified that she had 3 specific language patterns that she was using that contributed about 60% of her anxiety. The other ones were subconscious, and I had to kind of pluck those out of the mind a little bit more in detail, but she was able to identify 3 of them. The first one was, I can't get up. I just can't get up. She kept saying it to herself like that. Yeah, I just can't get up. The second one was, what's wrong with me? And then the third one was, what's going to happen today? Those were the 3 habitual language phrases that she kept using. Those words, those thoughts, I then asked her, I said, okay, think each one of those thoughts one after another, and then tell me, what do each one of them make you feel? So I had her think it in her mind, and then I said, tell me how it makes you feel. And she said, nervous, anxious, fearful. And we did it with each one, and we figured out how much of a charge there was around each one, like 0 to 10. And so then I said, okay, great. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to replace some of those with something different. So I said, look, instead of I can't get up, let's call it for what it really is. What you really mean is you don't feel like getting up. It's not that you can't get up, it's that you don't feel like it. And I said, if your smoke alarm went off and there was a fire in your house, I bet your ass you'd get your ass out of bed, wouldn't you? She started chuckling. I said, right. So it's not that you can't, it's that you aren't. It's that you don't feel like it. And so I said, look, replace it with this thought. I said, I can and I will, even if I don't feel like it. And that's what I told her to use. And I said, say that out loud just once or twice and see how it makes you feel. And so she said, okay, I can and I will, even if I don't feel like it. And she went, huh, that immediately makes me feel way better. I said, yeah, look at the cycle, look at the boxes. We changed the thought, then we changed the feeling. And I said, before when you said, I can't get up, did that make you feel inclined to get up or inclined to go back to bed, right? Obviously, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out it was causing her to feel inclined to go back to bed. I said, what does this new phrase make you feel inclined to do? She said, well, it makes me feel inclined to just do it, to just get up and do it. I said, see, change the thought, it'll change the feeling. The change in the feeling will lead to a new action. That action will lead to a new result. Okay, and what I shared with her and what I'm sharing with you is that while the human brain has 60 to 90,000 thoughts every day, 80 to 90% of those thoughts are the same day by day. And here's the good news. We only have probably 20 to 25 unique specific thoughts that are running through our mind every day. So what you've probably noticed is if you've been dealing with anxiety for any period of time is that there's a couple regular thoughts that run through your mind very consistently. It's usually a short list of 3 to 6. When you start with identifying those and you develop a resourceful alternative to those, that's usually the first big major dent in the anxiety because now, again, we've changed the habitual thoughts that your mind has. So think of it like this. If I got her to introduce a new thought into her mind in that moment that made her feel different in that moment and made her feel inclined to take action in that moment, whereas before the old thought cycle made her want to stay in bed and feel anxious, what would happen if she simply decided, okay, I'm no longer going to use the word can't anymore, and I'm going to replace that with I can and I will, even if I don't feel like it. If she simply decided and worked on and conditioned her brain to no longer have that old thought, but now have that new thought, now she's not going to just feel a little more motivated and a little bit more decisive once. Now she gets to feel more motivated and decisive every single morning because now she trains the brain to do it by default. Does that make sense to you guys? So now, by making just that one tiny shift, we have shifted her emotional center of gravity. Now, granted, that was just one shift of dozens that needs to happen if she wants to like fully overcome anxiety. But it's like moving the needle really substantially. And as long as she stays committed to that one principle for like 10 to 14 days, her brain will start doing it by default. So it takes a very, very tiny amount of willpower up front, and then the brain just starts to do it. And so this is why sometimes people don't believe me when I say this, but it really, really is true. I don't ever, and I mean ever, I don't ever use the word can't. I don't. I don't use that word. If I feel like there's something I, quote, can't do, what I'll usually say is either I'm not going to do that, or I'll say I didn't do that, right? So I would never say to myself, like, I can't, I can't work out today. What I would instead say is, yeah, I didn't work out today. Not I can't, I didn't. And there's a difference between those words, right? If I say I can't, it makes me feel disempowered, makes me feel like I'm not in charge, makes me feel like I have less choices, makes me feel like there might be another day in the future where I just flat out can't. It makes it less likely I'm going to do it in the future. If instead I just say, no, I didn't work out, I chose not to, then it reminds me that I'm the one in charge. I'm the one making my choices. I'm the one making my decisions. It causes me to not give my power away to anything else. Okay. So you identify each and every one of these habitual thoughts. Now, usually only about 25% of the ones that are causing you anxiety are conscious, as in you're going to be able to be aware of them. 75% of them are happening at a subconscious level. And so we need a different process for plucking those out of the subconscious. It's a lot easier than you think, but it requires something a little bit more in depth than I'm going to cover today. So you go through that process of mapping out, okay, what are all the habitual things my mind is thinking that make me feel all these habitual feelings and make me do all these negative actions? And then we systematically replace them piece by piece by piece by piece over the course of several weeks, only focusing on a couple at a time. And that's how you really, really sustainably build a foundation for mental health that will last a lifetime. That's how you wire your brain in a way, slowly and steadily, but in a way that can last, where you're not having to like just muster up a bunch of willpower to try to think positively because you've actually gotten your brain to work in your favor. So that's kind of the rough concept of how to shift your emotional center of gravity, and that's what I invite you to start looking at doing. So some action items for you would be immediately one thing that you could do right away is to do that little thought cycle exercise, right? And you could kind of map yourself out in each one of those 4 boxes. and then design for yourself an alternative thought that you could use. That would give you a little bit of a blip that would, kind of move the needle forward for you. And then I'm going to give you guys a free invitation. So any of you guys who've not taken me up on a free coaching session before, I do provide one completely, totally, no strings attached, free coaching session to any member of our online community if you would like one. So if you'd like help where I can literally walk you through this and do this for you and show you exactly what belongs in all 4 boxes and exactly what words to replace it with, so you know and you don't have to guess, and I can save you a lot of time and effort, happy to do that. Just go ahead and put the word session in the comments if you're joining with us live, and we'll go ahead and I'll shoot you out a message. We'll get something booked on the calendar. We'll get that set up. I'll work with you for about half an hour, just like I would if you were a client of mine, and I'll assist you. And it really is a no strings attached thing. My whole thing is I don't like to sell people. What I like to do is to help people, and then they go, oh my gosh, wow, your method really works. And then either one of 2 things happen. You either say, cool, like that was super helpful, I'm going to go forward on my own, which is great because now you've gotten free value from me and you're going to refer my stuff to other people and have good things to say. Or B, you'll be like, wow, this was really, really cool. What else you got? Right? And then I can show you what else I got. That's it. So if you want one of those sessions, just go ahead and put session in the comments. Or if you're joining us later on the podcast or on YouTube, you can just go to mentalhealthcoaching.com and book one of those. I have a few slots left for next week. Okay. Hope you guys found this very useful. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Mitchell. Thank you, Yolis, for joining with us today live. Greatly appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys next week, Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, right here in the Facebook group. See you guys. Bye.